You are listening to a story on Lotus Tale Studios. Wishing you an enjoyable time. When Manager Chen from the embroidery hall informed me that my parents had come to the estate, I was completely stunned. My hand shook, and the needle pierced my fingertip. Parents? What parents? I am a transmigrator. On a night filled with thunder and rain, I closed my eyes in one world and opened them in another. There was water everywhere, destruction all around, corpses floating in the muddy currents. Living souls were precious and rare. After days without food, I finally found a random dead man, placed a straw hat on his head, and collapsed beside him, weeping as I sold myself to bury my father. I have been at the Zhao estate for more than 10 years, and no one has ever sought me out. How could I possibly know who was waiting at the servants' gate? I stood up quickly, intending to see what this was about. But Manager Chen just scoffed. May, have you forgotten something? I froze. My expression stiffened, but I forced a smile and pulled out the wages I had just received from my sleeve. Here you are, manager. I was planning to give this to you when I returned. She sneered, giving me a look of contempt. May, you have always been the most compliant one. In 2 days, the eldest young master, Wei, will be choosing attendants for his quarters. I will put your name forward. Thank you, manager. I replied with a smile, then whispered under my breath. Bloodsucker. Just make sure you return quickly. You were ill for days, and the work has piled up considerably. Yes, Manager Chen. I understand. I hurried toward the servants' gate at the rear of the Zhao estate. This was where maids were permitted to meet outsiders. I passed through the moon gate, walked along the lengthy corridor filled with birdsong, crossed the expansive garden, and finally reached the servants' gate in the northeast corner. The Zhao estate is massive. The long walk left beads of perspiration on my brow. As soon as I arrived, I spotted a couple dressed in tattered, patched clothing, crying and calling out, Our daughter, our daughter. They rushed toward me. Before I could speak, I recoiled instinctively and shouted, Stop right there. Who is your daughter? What evidence do you have? I do not recall having parents. The woman, her face sallow and pale, looked momentarily embarrassed. She wiped her tears and sobbed. Hua, you were lost when you were only 7 years old. It has been so many years. It is natural you do not remember. But we truly are your parents. You have a red birthmark shaped like a plum blossom on your inner thigh, do you not? A red birthmark? I blinked. It was true. I did have one. Perhaps these truly were the biological parents of this body. But the truth was not what the woman claimed. 8 years ago, when I awoke in this body, faint memories revealed that this girl had been abandoned. The boat was overloaded, and the parents could only save their son or their daughter. In that situation, the choice was obvious. Oh. I pressed my lips together and responded calmly. Why have you both come here today? The man, who had small, shifty eyes, glanced around nervously and said, Hua, in the estate, I am called May. I interrupted, reminding him with a polite smile. The man paused, his expression awkward, before quickly adjusting his tone. May, daughter, I had no choice but to come today. Your brother. He began to weep as he spoke. Your younger brother is gravely ill. He is dying. The physician said it will take 3 taels of silver to save him. Can you help us? Oh, is it truly that serious? I feigned panic and quickly pulled a few coins from my sleeve. 5 copper coins in total. I hastily pressed them into the woman's hand. This is all I have. Please take it for now. Saving the child is what matters most. The woman stared at the 5 copper coins, stunned, her voice trembling. Hua, that is your own blood brother. I sighed. This truly is all I have. I have no other means. I was recently ill myself. I nearly died. Not only did I spend all my savings, but I also went into debt. I managed to gather these 5 coins. Consider it the last gesture of affection from this older sister to her brother. Hua, I know you still resent us, but that is your brother. The woman cried. She is not lying to you. Everyone in the estate knows she was ill. The gatekeeper, Uncle Lu, seemed to have lost his patience with the woman's wailing. You claim to be her parents. You say you care about her. Can you not see her face is as pale as paper? The woman's crying paused. The gatekeeper tapped his pipe against the doorframe, clearly displeased. Do you think this is your village's threshing ground? This is the Zhao estate. The Zhao estate. Do you understand? Even the county magistrate must show respect when he comes here. What a scene you are making, all this crying and wailing. Finish your business and leave. We have other matters to attend to at this gate. Just as he finished speaking, footsteps approached from behind. 7 or 8 young women in simple cotton dresses, wearing silver hairpins and carrying bundles on their backs, walked past. The one in the lead looked unhappy. They were all maids being released this year. According to the Zhao estate's tradition, every 2 years a group of older, unmarried maids is released and a new group is purchased and trained. This is done to avoid wasting their youth. It is said this practice was suggested by the great monk of the Lingyin Temple as a way to accumulate merit. Everyone in the city knows this and praises the Zhao family as virtuous and kind. It is just that in recent years, the number of maids leaving the Zhao estate has been increasing, while the number of new maids brought in is always insufficient. The lead maid frowned, glared at the gatekeeper, and walked out. I recognized her. It was Qiu from the eldest young master's quarters. She used to be highly favored, rumored to be a potential concubine. I had not expected her to be released as well. It was not difficult to understand why she looked unhappy. There is a saying outside, better to marry a released maid from a great house than a young lady from a common family. Life in the Zhao estate truly was not bad. Favored maids were even more refined and noble than daughters of ordinary households. It was understandable that she did not wish to leave. But that did not apply to me. If I could leave this estate, it would be wonderful. Noticing my envious gaze, the woman curiously asked another question. I gave a vague answer. The man stared intently at the departing maid's fine clothes, their bundles, and their gold and silver jewelry, his eyes shining brightly. He quickly asked, May, how much longer until you are released? I blinked, looking at him with pity. I am sorry. I am bound by a deed of sale. A deed of sale meant that unless the master took pity on me, I would live as a person of the Zhao estate and die as a ghost of the Zhao estate for my entire life. The ones being released were all on service contracts. I watched as the man's jaw dropped, his expression frozen. After spending 5 copper coins to fulfill the original owner's filial obligation, I had an errand boy cleverly send them away. Then I took out another 10 copper coins and gave them to the gatekeeper. A small token. Please have some wine, Uncle Lu. If that couple returns, there is no need to inform me. Just turn them away. The gatekeeper smiled as he accepted the money, patting his chest in assurance. Do not worry. Your uncle here has seen plenty of this sort of thing. I am experienced. After thanking him, I hurried back. Manager Chen's words were certainly not a joke. I had truly missed a great deal of work while I was ill. Soon, it would be Madame Zhao's birthday. People from the capital were coming, so all the masters in the estate needed new garments to maintain appearances. If I did not complete my assigned tasks, I feared I would be punished. As soon as I entered the embroidery hall, I saw a group of maids gathered together, occasionally letting out little giggles. Walking past them, I overheard them discussing the selection of attendants for the various quarters. With so many maids released, the masters needed attendants. Did that not mean someone would be promoted? In the Zhao estate, the best place to be assigned was old Madame Zhao's quarters. There was little work and few troubles. Old Madame Zhao was gentle and kind. Maids from her quarters, whether married off or released, always received a generous dowry. The next best options were the quarters of the young masters and misses, the children of Madame Zhao. There were many servants in those quarters, so the work was divided evenly and was not too strenuous. Sometimes they even received treats from the small kitchen, and one could earn a little extra running errands. The most difficult places were the kitchens, the embroidery hall, and the laundry house, where the work was so overwhelming your hands were never idle. Among these, the embroidery hall was already considered one of the better options, as at least we did not have to endure wind and rain or perform heavy labor. When I first entered the estate, I was assigned to the main kitchen. The work was dirty and exhausting. Although one could sneak some good food, that privilege was only for those with good connections. For an orphan like me who had sold herself to bury her father, there were no such benefits. After several years of hard work, I finally managed to transfer to the embroidery hall. However, I had to pay a monthly tribute, so I could not save much money. Recently, I fell gravely ill, and nearly all my savings were spent on physicians. Regarding the couple who came looking for me today, I was not lying, but I was not telling the complete truth either. I do have money. In fact, I have a substantial sum, enough for me to leave this estate, live comfortably, and enjoy a life of ease. It all began with an unfortunate pair of lovers. Lord Zhao had a highly favored concubine Yen, the daughter of a wealthy merchant from Hangzhou. She was devastatingly beautiful. A simple lift of her eyebrow or a single glance could steal a man's soul. Concubine Yen had a childhood sweetheart from whom she had been separated for many years. After 10 years, this man found her again and even managed to become the steward in the Zhao estate. As the saying goes, old flames are easily rekindled. I did not know when they started their secret affair. I only know that I stumbled upon them by accident while I was ill. At the time, the embroidery hall was overwhelmed with work, and fearing I was contagious, they moved me to a deserted room to isolate me. Every day, only a young maid brought me food. If I wanted water in the middle of the night, I had to drag myself out of bed and go to the storage room in the next courtyard to fetch it. In the darkness, I saw the steward and concubine Yen appear by the rock garden. I hid in the shadows, not daring to breathe. The two clung to each other, whispering intimately for a long time. I had never seen concubine Yen display such delicate, girlish tenderness. I squatted for so long my legs went numb. Finally, I saw the steward stuff a package into a secret hollow in the rockery. After concealing it, the two reluctantly parted ways. As a lowly maid, I dared not meddle in the master's affairs. Once they left, I quickly scurried back. Later, concubine Yen and the steward were caught attempting to elope. Lord Zhao was furious. All the servants in the estate were summoned to witness the punishment. Even I, sick as I was dragged from my bed. The steward was tied tightly to a bench, his mouth gagged with a filthy rag, his eyes bloodshot. The large, coarse club struck him heavily, one blow after another. The pain made his body convulse repeatedly before going limp. Veins bulged on his skin and fresh blood dripped down, soaking the blue bricks. I stood among the maids, supported by others. I could not help but cover my mouth, trying to swallow the rising nausea. My mouth tasted metallic from the smell of blood. Having lived in the Zhao estate for many years, this was not the first time I had witnessed a beating, but it always made me sick. My modern ideals of human rights and equality constantly clashed with the reality that a person's fate depended entirely on their master's will. But to survive, I had gradually adapted over the years. The steward did not last long. His eyes rolled back, and he breathed his last. Lord Zhao's attendant issued a stern warning to everyone, and then we were dismissed. The steward's body was dragged away by the feet like dragging a dog. I glanced back for a second and met a pair of deep, gloomy eyes. I was instantly terrified and snapped my head back. Outside the Zhao estate, the official story was that the steward had been punished for thievery, stealing property from the estate, and had died. Only I knew the real reason. As for concubine Yen, upon hearing of the steward's death, she was so grief-stricken that she slammed her head against a wall and died. It was reported as death by illness. The maids who served concubine Yen were also implicated and all sold off. For several days, the entire estate was in turmoil. I had been nearly recovered, but the shock made me sick for several more days. Fortune favors the bold, while the timid starve. I had been curious about what the steward had hidden in the rockery, but I had not dared to go near it. After several days, with no further disturbances, I finally gritted my teeth. In the dead of night, I crept to the rockery, retrieved the package, and returned to my room, locking the door and windows like a thief. I took a deep breath and shakily opened the package. It was not large. Inside was a small, plain wooden box without any carvings, about half a forearm in length. The box was filled with high-value banknotes and a pile of miscellaneous gold and silver pieces. The treasure glittered under the lamplight, almost blinding me. In all my years at the estate, I had never seen so much money. My fingers trembled. I stared blankly for a long time before I dared to reach out and touch it. The exhilarating rush of a poor person suddenly striking it rich flooded my mind. I did not sleep at all that night. My eyes were wide open until dawn, yet I felt completely alert. Perhaps this is the burden of wealth. When Manager Chen walked in with Zhao, the eldest young master's favored maid, I was hunched over, hurriedly embroidering flowers on the dress that eldest Miss Zhao was to wear to the prefect's daughter's gathering in 2 days. As they entered, the group of giggling maids quickly dispersed. Everyone smiled fawningly at Zhao. She was now the second most favored maid by the eldest young master's side. The most favored, Zhao, had already been sent away. Both had been chosen for the eldest young master by Madame Zhao herself. Zhao circled the room, then stopped beside me and said lazily, "Lift your head. Let me see you." I did not understand her intention, but I did as she asked and looked up. A flash of contempt crossed her eyes. Humph. Nothing special to look at, is she? What did that mean? I was not a stunning beauty who captivated people at first glance, but I could be considered delicate and pleasant. After years in the embroidery hall, my once dark skin had lightened considerably. In this estate, beauty could be an advantage, but it could also be a disaster. I blinked, and before I could ask what she meant, I saw her take the new garments from Manager Chen and leave with her head held high. Manager Chen turned back to me, her smile wide and her gaze intense. "May, your good fortune has arrived." I blinked again. Good fortune? From Manager Chen's explanation, I pieced together the story. To be honest, I had forgotten all about it. A while ago, the embroidery hall was ordered by Madame Zhao to make several new outfits for the eldest young master's outing. Normally, a maid from his quarters would have come to collect them, but for some reason, no one came that day. So Manager Chen had me and Peony deliver them. It was a simple task, but that day, I happened to run into the eldest young master, Wei, as he was heading out. He was wearing a jade white robe, a paired fish jade pendant at his waist, his smile gentle and charming. After briefly inspecting the new garments, he told me to lift my head and remarked, "Your eyes are very beautiful." Because of that one sentence, I was now in the spotlight. Zhao had been sent away, so naturally a replacement was needed. Zhao had served the eldest young master for many years and was determined to become his concubine. She had likely come to assess the competition. Seeing her reaction, she must have felt relieved after looking at me. Manager Chen's excited voice was still ringing in my ears. "May, they will come to select someone in 2 days. You must prepare yourself." I lowered my head to hide my discomfort, forcing a stiff smile. Peony, who had entered the estate at the same time as me, walked over, her face full of envy. "May, you're so fortunate. The eldest young master noticed you. He is such a good person. Perhaps you will even—" She did not finish her sentence, but I knew what she meant. Become a concubine. In the estate, the eldest young master Wei and the eldest young madam could not have children, which had always displeased Madame Zhao. The conflict between mother-in-law and daughter-in-law had simmered for years. It seemed they had now reached a compromise. Zhao was sent away, but in return, a concubine or a personal maid had to be brought in to bear a child for Wei. Many maids in the estate were now competing for this position, all trying to climb higher. As I looked at Peony's sparkling, envious eyes, I let out a small laugh. Who wants to be a concubine? I thought. I want to leave the estate. I want to be a small landowner. On the day of the selection, I fell ill again. I was lying in bed, vomiting so violently the world was spinning. When Manager Chen saw my condition, she cursed nonstop. "You truly have no fortune. Such a golden opportunity and you cannot even grasp it." You deserve to be a maid your whole life, stepped on by others. I was even counting on you to pull me up with you. But now I see you just do not have that fate. I said nothing, only covering my face and pretending to be in pain. After she left, my expression changed. I turned over, a small smile playing on my lips. This illness was half natural, half intentional. I reached under my pillow and pulled out a small, pale brown piece of paper, clasping it between my fingers. The bitter scent of medicine hit my nose. We had been together for so many years. I never expected Peony to secretly poison me. All just to fight for that illusory position of a concubine. Yes, without me, Peony's chances of entering the eldest young master's quarters would probably be much greater. After all, that day, besides praising me, the eldest young master also praised Peony's waist, saying it was as soft and graceful as a willow branch. Last night, she came to me with a bright smile, carrying a bowl of soup, urging me to drink it. But the moment I smelled it, I understood. I did not refuse, but I did not drink it either. Instead, I used the medicine I had prepared beforehand. If this is what she wants, I hope she gets her wish. I lay in bed thinking just that. Not long after, Peony returned. She seemed to have succeeded. The smile on her face was radiant, but when she saw me, her smile faltered, replaced by a trace of guilt.
May.
I did not pay her much mind. I just gave a faint smile and said, "Congratulations." Besides Peony, another maid from the embroidery hall named Lan was also chosen by Madame Zhao. Manager Chen then brought in 2 young, ignorant maids as replacements. Manager Chen clearly was not pleased with me and deliberately assigned both of them to me.
May, you will train them.
What could 2 little maids possibly do? Their embroidery skills were only good enough for sorting threads. The main workload still fell on me. Sister May. Looking at their 2 young faces trying so hard to please me, I felt like I was seeing my past self. I sighed helplessly. "Come here. Let me teach you how to sort the threads first." The work was overwhelming and the deadlines were tight. I barely had a moment's rest. Peony came to visit me a few times, but I was always busy. She was now one of the eldest young master's favored women, adorned with gold and silver, looking completely different from before. There was always a smile on her face. It seemed she had grasped some power and understood the ways of the estate. She secretly asked me, "Manager Chen keeps bullying you like this. Do you want to leave the embroidery hall? I can secure you a better position." I hesitated, looking at her for a moment. My intuition warned me this was not good. I smiled and shook my head. I am naturally slow-witted and do not know how to conduct myself properly. It is better for me to stay in the embroidery hall. She poked my forehead in frustration. I just smiled without saying anything. A different position is still a servant's position. How could it be as freeing as leaving the estate to live my own life? The biggest problem was that I was still bound by a deed of sale. Next year would be old Madame Zhao's 70th birthday. The Zhao estate would surely hold a grand celebration. At that time, if I could catch the old madame's eye, I might have a chance to beg her for my freedom. But before I could wait for that day, disaster struck. The maid, who served by Lord Zhao's side, died suddenly. Her body was wrapped in a ragged mat and tossed out, and someone recommended me to take her place. Lord Zhao was over 40 with a pot belly and a face full of wrinkles. His official career was unsuccessful, but he had a lecherous nature. His body had been hollowed out by wine and women, yet he still preferred young girls. The maids by his side were all attendants for his bed. Perhaps his health was failing, so he had a particular fondness for novelties. All right, choose her. The master's quarters are short on people. Looking at his thin, monkey-like face, I cursed him countless times in my heart. The surrounding eyes glanced at me furtively, full of pity. Going to Lord Zhao's quarters was worse than going to the eldest young master's. At least the eldest young master was young and handsome. When she was younger, Madame Zhao could still control Lord Zhao. Now that her son and daughter were grown, as long as he did not cause any major trouble, she mostly turned a blind eye. I was so tense that sweat beaded on my forehead. But in this situation, as a maid on a deed of sale, I had no way to escape. If I was truly defiled by that despicable old man, I might as well drag him down to death with me. It was just a pity I had not had the chance to enjoy that money. Just then, footsteps sounded from outside the courtyard. The skinny-faced man glanced out, then quickly bowed, his face wreathed in a welcoming smile. "Second young master, why have you come here?" "My attendant Amber has passed away. The estate has not assigned a replacement. Mother told me to choose one myself, but I was busy with my studies and had no time. I am free today and heard you were selecting people, so I came to have a look." The skinny-faced man chuckled obsequiously. "So that is it. We have a good gathering of maids today. Please, second young master, take a look and choose anyone you find suitable." The footsteps drew closer. The newcomer strolled leisurely past the rows of maids, pausing occasionally to observe. Finally, he stopped in front of me. He raised an eyebrow and said casually, "I will choose her." "Her?" The skinny-faced man was clearly surprised. "What? Is there a problem?" The newcomer frowned, asking in displeasure. The skinny-faced man quickly replied, No problem at all." Then he turned and barked at me. "You follow the second young master. Remember to serve him diligently." "What is your name?" he asked.
May.
I carefully raised my head to look at him, meeting his deep, dark eyes. I was startled and quickly lowered my head, answering in a humble tone.
May.
He repeated the name, then smiled. "That is nice. It sounds like a sibling name to Amber." I pursed my lips, forcing a smile in response. This is truly jumping from the frying pan into the fire. The second young master, Zhao, was an unlucky person. His mother was a concubine, said to be a stunning beauty with a gentle and virtuous temperament. But her fate was cruel. She passed away not long after giving birth to him. The great monk of the Lingyin Temple had once read the second young master's fortune, saying he was born with a hard destiny that repelled those close to him. Therefore, since childhood, Zhao had been moved to live alone in the northeast corner of the estate. Fortunately, he was brilliant in his studies. He was just one imperial examination away from having his name on the golden list. The retired imperial tutor had reviewed his essays and declared him to be of top scholar caliber. Because of this, even as a concubine-born son, his status in the estate was not low at all. People looked at him and saw a bright future. Many maids in the estate were infatuated with him, but not a single one met a good end. Anyone who entered his quarters suffered strange accidents. It seemed the words of the Lingyin Temple's monk had been verified. His attendant Amber was the one who had lasted the longest, serving for over a year, but even she eventually died of illness. Today, I had to report for duty. As I returned to my room to pack, everyone looked at me with pity. Even Manager Chen, who always found fault with me, spoke gently, shaking her head and sighing endlessly. Carrying my bundle, I stood at the door and waved goodbye to them. I felt neither joy nor sadness, just steps moving toward a new life. The second young master, Zhao, was not a simple character. I always felt that his choosing me was not a spontaneous act. The reason was that on the day the steward was beaten to death in front of everyone, I had seen him. His eyes held an indescribable coldness and resentment. The second young master's quarters were named Tranquil Garden, located in a rather remote corner. Even though his status in the estate had risen, he did not seem to want to move, saying only that this place was quiet and suitable for studying. As soon as I entered the courtyard, someone came to greet me. It was a young attendant named Kai. He was very enthusiastic and friendly. After taking me to Amber's old room to settle my things, he gave me a tour of the courtyard. "Sister May, from now on, all the matters inside the young master's rooms are your responsibility. The young master always complains that we men are clumsy. Now that you are here, everything will be fine. If there is anything you do not understand, just call for me." Kai gave me a kind smile. "Thank you," I replied with a smile. Before he could finish, the second young master's call came from the study. Kai ducked his head, smiling sheepishly. "Sister May." I looked at the study door, wondering what he was so afraid of. But regardless, This was my job now. Where are the tea leaves and water? What kind does the second young master prefer? The tea leaves and water are in the small room next door. The second young master is not picky. Not picky? I opened the small room to look. Sure enough, there was only one type of tea. Truly nothing to be picky about. When I brought the tea in, Zhao was sitting at his desk reading. The carved wooden window was wide open, letting warm sunbeams fall onto the pages. A light breeze gently tousled his hair. He was engrossed in his book, a faint smile on his lips, as if he had read something interesting. People often said Zhao resembled his birth mother, concubine Lian. Looking at his face, I could somewhat imagine the stunning beauty of the concubine that people talked about. Second young master, your tea is here. I spoke softly, walking quietly to his side and placing the cup down. He picked it up and took a sip. Do you know how to grind ink? This servant was always in the embroidery hall and never learned. This was my first day. I did not know this second young master's temperament, so I kept my head down, trying to appear as compliant as possible. There is no need to be so tense. I am not a difficult person to serve. There is not much to do here, in Tranquil Garden. You just need to grind my ink, brew my tea, and occasionally help me tidy the study and bedroom. Other heavy tasks will be handled by others.
Yes.
I pressed my lips into a smile, thinking to myself, you do not do the work, so you do not know how much work there is. You really think that is not much work. Watch. I will teach you how to grind ink. With that, Zhao set his book down, picked up the inkstone, and began to instruct me. His hands were beautiful. Long fingers, well-defined joints from frequently holding a brush and reading. The pads of his fingers had a thin layer of calluses. His voice was slow and measured. Looking at him for too long could easily draw a person in. Again, I reminded myself and began to practice. Grinding ink seemed like a small task, but it held many secrets. It was obvious I was not doing it well. I could only blink at him innocently. What else could I do? I was new after all. He seemed dissatisfied, but did not say more. He just dipped his brush in the ink I had ground and began to write. I stood beside him, my eyes fixed on my nose on my heart, concentrating, not daring to glance around. As a maid, the most important rule of survival was do not look at what you are not supposed to look at. Or so I thought. But just as he finished writing a line, Zhao suddenly asked me, "Can you read?" "No, I cannot." Seizing the opportunity, I lowered my head, glanced at the paper, and then answered obediently. On the paper was written, "Dear Brother Foam, receiving your letter was like seeing you again. I heard Kuan encountered cold winds upon reaching the summit. Is he better now? The mountain roads are long, and I should have visited in person, but with my mother's birthday approaching, I can only send this letter to express my concern." So he was writing a letter to a friend. I took a quick peek and hastily averted my gaze. Reading is a good thing. You should learn a little. I stared, my eyes wide in astonishment. I truly never expected the second young master to allow a maid like me to learn to read. In all my years in the Zhao estate, I had never seen a maid be taught to read. Even most of the young misses in the family only learned household management, knowing just enough characters to read account books and avoid being cheated. "What? You do not want to learn?" He frowned when he heard my surprised tone. A legitimate chance to learn to read. How could I not cherish it? "I want to learn. I want to learn," I replied hastily. He curved his lips slightly and pointed to the bookshelf opposite. On the top shelf are the introductory books I used, like the 3-character classic and the 100 family surnames. You can take those to read first. Later, I will give you a set of brushes and ink I used to use. Although you are no longer a child, it is never too late to learn. The process might be tedious, but I hope you persevere. It will be good for you. "Yes," I answered enthusiastically, the smile on my face more genuine this time. "Thank you, second young master. It is nothing. Just make sure you do your work well in Tranquil Garden." Yes, this servant will definitely do her best. After serving the tea, about 10 minutes later, I walked out carrying a pile of books and a set of brush, ink, paper, and inkstone. It was clear Han Zhao treasured them. The books were kept in pristine condition. This body originally could not read, and in a place like the Zhao estate, there was no fertile ground for a girl who had sold herself to bury her father to grow. I was just a lowly maid. Learning something so precious was not meant for someone of my station. But while the body belonged to the original owner, the soul inside was that of a modern person, one who had completed compulsory education and even attended university. From simplified characters to traditional characters, the gap between two eras, even two worlds. It took me a great deal of effort to adapt, but it was worth it. No one can deny the importance of reading and literacy. Knowledge changes destiny. This has never been a lie, past or present. Although the contents of the 3-character classic and 100 family surnames did not mean much to me, Han Zhao had given me an opportunity, a chance to openly own my ability to read and write. Han Zhao was indeed not a difficult master to serve, just as he had said. But the work in the courtyard was not as light as he claimed. He loved to read, valued his study, and was a bit of a neat freak, particularly about tidiness. Therefore, I had to spend much more time cleaning the bedroom and study. As the only maid in the courtyard, many tasks like sewing and mending also fell to me. He was like my teacher. After I finished my work each day, he would teach me to read and write a few characters at a time and would occasionally test me. I had no problem learning the characters and was even praised for being smart sometimes. It was just that my handwriting was truly awful. I sighed, having ruined another sheet of paper. Even though this was all scrap paper that Han Zhao no longer used, paper was expensive in this era, and I could not help but feel the pinch. Just as I was about to set the ruined paper aside, my eyes caught a glimpse of a dark blue robe sweeping in. My heart tightened. I quickly pretended nothing was wrong, hiding the spoiled paper under the bottom of the stack. When he approached, I stood and curtsied. "Second young master. What are you hiding? Show me. What is the second young master talking about?" "This servant is not hiding anything." I blinked, continuing to play dumb. "I already saw it. What is the point in hiding?" Han Zhao chuckled, his eyes darting to the stack of paper. The corner of the sheet I had not hidden well was sticking out. I had been caught. I could not deny it any longer. I could only laugh awkwardly, pulling out the worst-looking sheet to give to him. "Second young master, perhaps this servant should practice on a sand table first. Using paper like this is really too wasteful," I stammered. "No need. How can you learn to write without using paper? Our family can afford it." He refused without a second thought, merely frowning slightly as he looked at my writing. "But second young master, this servant is just a maid." I bit my lip, gently adding. He sighed and placed the paper on the desk. "It is fine. Sit down and watch me write. Let us see where your problem lies, how you hold the brush, where you place the stroke." Although he said it was fine, was it really so easy? Han Zhao was a concubine-born son. Although he had some academic achievements, his situation was only slightly better than other less accomplished concubine-born sons in the estate. Compared to the children born of the main wife, he was far behind. They received regular subsidies. Han Zhao only had the monthly allowance stipulated in the ledgers, and that money had to cover his studies, buy books, and pay for his social engagements. Han Zhao studied diligently and used a lot of paper. Now, there was a paper eater like me added to the mix. Even though he said it was scrap paper for me, most of it was high quality. I knew he was doing this on purpose. But why was he being so good to me? If one were to say he had taken an interest in me, it did not seem like it. As a maid, especially one on a deed of sale, some things were hard to refuse. But he was a true gentleman. When he taught me to read, he truly only taught me to read. Once I went from Tranquil Garden to the eldest young master's Harmony courtyard to deliver something. As I passed the study window, I saw Peony also learning to write with the eldest young master, but she was being taught hand over hand. I do not know how much she was learning, but she seemed very happy. To some extent, the eldest young master Wei was just like Lord Zhao. The only difference was that the eldest young madam was not like Madame Zhao. When I arrived, I unfortunately stumbled upon the eldest young master and the eldest young madam arguing. I overheard a few sentences, and it seemed to be about money. Stop pretending. Did you take my dowry money to spend on that shameless hussy?
What are you talking about?
Truly, women and petty people are the hardest to manage. I kept my head down, pretending not to hear, and walked away quickly. As I left, the eldest young madam's personal maid, Jade, smiled and pressed a silver ingot into my hand. No words were needed. I understood. The Zhao estate's finances were dwindling. This had been apparent for a long time. The number of maids and servants in the estate was decreasing. They called it accumulating merit. But the number of new recruits was not enough to fill the gap. The workload for those who remained grew heavier, and the food for the servants got worse. But the masters, madams, and the children of the main branch would not let themselves suffer. They still had to maintain their facade in front of outsiders. After all, Lord Zhao had once held the position of Vice Minister of Revenue, but after losing a political struggle, he had to retire and return to his hometown. The year I entered the Zhao estate was the same year he moved his entire family from the capital, returning to his ancestral home for the first time. They were short-staffed, which was how I was able to sell myself into the estate and get a full meal. Now I had money, but I had no reason to take it out. On the surface, my monthly allowance was always spent. As I was spacing out, my head was suddenly tapped. Pay attention. What are you daydreaming about? Han Zhao tapped his fingers on the table.
Yes.
Have you memorized what I just said? I have memorized it. Good. Then write. I picked up the brush. This time was a little better than before, but still not very good. I blinked, expecting to be scolded, but he just stared at the characters and said, "Writing just needs more practice. You do not need to worry about the other things." "Yes," I replied, a trace of complication in my eyes. "Thank you, second young master." The fact that I was learning to write eventually spread. It was impossible to hide it forever. When Peony heard, she came to find me. It had been over a month since our last meeting. Except for when I had to leave for errands, I stayed quietly in Tranquil Garden. Life was peaceful. Peony looked at my vibrant expression and asked, "May, how is your life in Tranquil Garden?" "It is good," I replied with a smile, my tone completely natural. I knew she was waiting for me to ask, "And what about you?" But I deliberately did not ask. To be honest, I did not much care. She finally could not hold it in any longer, sighing as she began to complain. "May, you have no idea how miserable my life in Harmony Courtyard is now. Is the eldest young Master Wei not very fond of you? I heard from the sisters in the embroidery hall that you have even surpassed Zhao, who has been with him for years." Peony pouted. "Madame Zhao sent Fong in. You know, she and I never got along, and she has Madame Zhao backing her, so even the eldest young madam cannot compare. Now the eldest young master only has eyes for her." At this point, Peony burst into tears. The conflict between Madame Zhao and the eldest young madam was well known. Madame Zhao probably anticipated this before Peony even entered the courtyard, which is why she also sent Fong in. No one understands a son better than his mother. Fong was personally trained by Madame Zhao. Of course, she would suit the eldest young master's tastes. No matter who stepped in, they were ultimately just sacrificial pawns. Having been in the estate for so many years, tasting the cold and warmth of human relationships, enduring the oppression and scorn of those in power, I understood Peony's desire to advance, to pursue a better life. But she had made her choice, and even if she cried, she had to keep walking that path. However, it was not as if she had not gained anything. Look at the brocade dress she was wearing, the bracelet on her wrist, the hairpin in her hair. They were worlds apart from what an ordinary maid could possess. The eldest young master was not treating her that badly. In this house, if you seek wealth and status, do not expect true feelings. We were walking different paths. We could not work together. I did not know what to say to comfort her. I thought about the newly embroidered handkerchief in my sleeve, but in the end, I could not bring myself to give it to her and put it back. I just reached out and patted her back. That small gesture seemed to be all the encouragement she needed. She threw herself into my arms and wailed, I was at a loss for words, so I just continued to pat her back, hoping she would calm down soon. After sending her off, I turned to go back and ran right into Han Zhao. He looked at the unfamiliar golden butterfly hairpin in my hair and asked, "What is with that hairpin?" We had developed a bit of camaraderie these past few days, so I did not hide it from him. I told him all about Peony's visit. This servant did not want to accept it, but she insisted. If I did not take it, she would keep crying. I did not know what else to do. I shrugged helplessly. Fine, just this once. If she comes looking for you again, just let her. Do not get involved in the affairs of Harmony Courtyard.
And Zhao warned me.
Second young master, this servant is not that foolish. Not foolish, just greedy for money. He chuckled, whispering something. His voice was low. I only caught the first half. I was about to ask him to repeat it when he turned away, leaving only a parting instruction. In 2 days, it is my mother's birthday. I want to wear the light blue brocade robe. Remember to scent it beforehand. Yes, this servant understands. Han Zhao was easy to please. He usually disliked fussy, ornate things, but this was Madame Zhao's birthday celebration. Many officials and nobles would be attending, so some attention to detail was necessary. I chose the osmanthus incense we had preserved from last year, careful not to make it too strong, as I feared he was not used to it. After helping him into the brocade robe, I also attached a fragrant sachet and a jade pendant. Both the sachet and the bamboo motif on the robe were embroidered by me. I had used several complex techniques, putting in a great deal of effort, pouring almost everything I had learned in the embroidery hall into them. Han Zhao was already handsome, and now standing under the eaves with such dignified bearing, he truly looked like an outstanding noble son. May, are you done? Yes, second young master. We can go, I said, picking up the birthday gift he had prepared for Madame Zhao and walking out. Today, Han Zhao planned to bring me along to the banquet. The Zhao estate had hosted many banquets, but I was always just a servant in the background. I might steal a glance, but I never dared to look for long. This time, following Han, I could finally take a proper look. The gift he prepared for Madame Zhao was a painting of Guanyin, which he had painted himself. I handed the painting to Madame Zhao's head maid, and then, like everyone else, I retreated to stand behind Han, respectfully listening to their conversations. The guests from the capital had arrived. Madame Zhao had invited her sister-in-law, her nephew and niece, as well as Lord Zhao's old classmates and various madams and young misses from around the city. The room was packed. After some greetings, everyone moved to the garden. A theater troupe had been invited for the day. The young ladies, dressed in splendid attire, watched the opera while chatting amongst themselves. The men had their own topics of discussion. The Zhao estate's garden was vast, with a small pavilion in the middle of a lake, a truly elegant spot. Led by the eldest young master Wei, a group of men were in the pavilion composing poetry and laughing loudly. I stood waiting with the other maids not far away. Suddenly, I felt a sense of unease.
I was not sure why.
Perhaps it was intuition. I felt that something about the Zhao estate, about Lord Zhao and Madame Zhao, was different today. There was an unconcealable excitement in their eyes, as if something major was about to happen.
May.
Peony stealthily swapped places with another maid and nudged me with her elbow, whispering my name. I snapped back to reality and quickly hissed.
You.
Did you forget Mama Wu's warning? Be careful of your skin. It is fine. They are not paying attention. Why are you here? I pressed my lips together, annoyed, and glanced at her, then blinked. Because the second young master only has me as his maid. Realizing I had asked a foolish question, Peony gave an awkward laugh and quickly changed the subject. The Zhao estate is so lively today. This birthday feast seems even grander than Lord Zhao's last year. Do you see that young lord in the blue brocade robe? I heard he is the heir of a princely residence in the capital. Oh, I responded faintly, lowering my head, feigning disinterest. A princely residence? I remember hearing the old-timers say that this prince had close ties with Lord Zhao's former mentor, Old Lord Chen. But later, when Old Lord Chen lost the court struggle and had to leave his official post, The two seemed to lose contact. Now someone from the princely residence has come. Could it be that Lord Zhao intends to return to the imperial court? Thinking this, I could not help but sneak another look. The wine is gone.
Bring more wine.
The eldest young Master Wei seemed very happy today, shouting loudly.
Yes.
Peony replied with a smile. She was not enough on her own, so I and several other maids also brought a few more jugs of wine to the pavilion. As I looked up, I met Han Zhao's gaze. He was looking at me, a smile on his face.
Ooh, Han.
The heir noticed this and teased him. Before Han could speak, the eldest young Master Wei guffawed and answered for him. That is the maid from Han's courtyard.
Her name is May.
Peony quickly added. Yes, May. His younger brother chose her himself. She is his only attendant. The insinuation was thick, a common suggestive joke among men. Everyone understood. On the surface, I remained calm, giving a small, unknowing smile, but inwardly I was cursing them all. Like father, like son. They are all the same. In my anger, I accidentally cursed Han Zhao along with them. Being teased, Han remained perfectly composed. He gestured for me to come and pour his wine, saying lightly, She is the maid I chose. She is honest and has no ulterior motives. With just one sentence, he made his stance clear. Strangely, my heart felt lighter, peaceful again. After I finished pouring, Han found a simple excuse to send me away. That evening, the young masters were all entertaining guests in the front courtyard. Maids were supposed to be in attendance, but Han did not call for me. Instead, he had his attendant Kai accompany him. I did not return to the courtyard either, but waited with several other maids in a small side room. There was water boiling on the stove and tea ready in the cabinet. If the masters needed anything, we had to be ready to serve immediately. A kind older maid brought out a tray of pastries. The masters only had a bite or two and left the rest. Share this to fill your stomachs. But there were many of us, so each person only got one small piece. I rubbed my stomach, feeling famished after the long day of waiting. Suddenly, the door curtain moved. Kai poked his head in, his face looking relieved. He waved me over. I stood up and followed him to a secluded corner. Kai carefully looked around. Seeing no one was paying attention, he pulled an oil paper packet from his robes like it was a treasure. Here, you are hungry, right? Eat this quickly. The young master told me to bring it for you. The young master? I asked, surprised. Yes. My gaze faltered slightly. My heart suddenly in turmoil. The golden jade inlaid hairpin I had hidden in my sleeve suddenly felt hot. That day, when Peony was showing off the golden butterfly hairpin she had given me, Han Zhao happened to see it. Not even a few days later, a far more expensive hairpin appeared on my desk. Han did not say anything, but I knew it was from him. He had made that hairpin himself. I had no idea where he had learned such a skill. Eat quickly. Be careful no one sees. I have to go. The young master is still waiting. After giving his instructions, Kai hurried away, leaving me standing there holding the packet. I opened it. Inside were all my favorite pastries. My heart was a mess of emotions, but no matter how confused I felt, my stomach needed to be full. I quickly finished the pastries and headed back to the side room. But before I could even step inside, I ran right into Madame Zhao's head maid, Lotus. She stared at me, an annoying, meaningful smile on her face. My heart sank. Sure enough, less than 2 days later, Madame Zhao secretly summoned me. When I returned, my mind was in chaos. People I knew greeted me as I passed, but I did not even respond. Madame Zhao had used both temptations and threats, my status as a servant, to order me to seduce Han Zhao, to try and make him drown in amorous affairs. Han Zhao was just a concubine-born son, and one she despised. How could she tolerate him surpassing her own son? She wanted him to fail the upcoming imperial examination. Perhaps she had sent other maids to his courtyard before, but Han's cold indifference had always given her no weakness to exploit. Now, there was me. I was the one Han Zhao had personally chosen, and he treated me not badly. Looking at his serious face as he studied in the study, my heart felt heavy. I looked down, unable to describe my feelings because I had yet to take action. Lotus sought me out secretly several times, but I skillfully avoided her. One day, it seemed Madame Zhao's side had run out of patience. That evening, Lotus used the excuse of bringing bird's nest soup to Han Zhao to find me again. Before leaving, she leaned close to my ear and whispered, "The opportunity has been created. You must succeed tonight." I froze. When I finally reacted and saw her off, I rushed inside. Just as I saw Han preparing to lift the bowl to his lips, I panicked. Without thinking, I shouted, "Second young master, wait." Han paused, looking at me in confusion. I let out a breath of relief and hurried over, taking the bowl from his hand, desperately searching for an excuse. "Second young master, this soup is too hot. Let this servant blow on it to cool it down before you drink." "It is not hot. It will lose its flavor if it gets cold," he said, reaching to take the bowl back. I held on tightly, gritting my teeth. "It is very hot, young master. Do not be hasty. This servant will be right back." With that, I grabbed the bowl and rushed out, disregarding all etiquette. I had just reached the doorway, my right foot stepping out, when a voice full of amusement came from behind me. "May, come back." My back stiffened. I turned around to meet a pair of teasing eyes. In that instant, I realized he had been playing with me this whole time. A moment later, the windows and door of the study were all closed. I stood stiffly before him. The bowl of bird's nest soup sat on the table, steam rising slowly. Neither of us spoke. It felt like a confrontation, yet the atmosphere was not tense. After a long while, he was the one who spoke first. "Do you not have anything to say? What was added to this soup?" I pursed my lips, thinking, what was added? Judging by Lotus's attitude, it must be some kind of aphrodisiac. Such things were not hard to find in the Zhao estate. And judging by your expression, you probably already knew. Even if I thought that as a woman, I was not shameless enough to say it. Aside from mumbling my way through that part, I confessed everything else honestly. He listened, his expression unchanging. "That is all?" I frowned, searching my memory carefully, then looked at him with an innocent, blank expression. "Is there something else?" He chuckled, his eyes narrowing slightly, and he slowly enunciated each word. For example, the matter of concubine Yen and the steward. My heart plummeted, but my face remained baffled. "Second young master, what are you talking about? What matter with concubine Yen and the steward?" "The concubine died of illness, and the steward was beaten to death for theft."
Is that so?
He paused. "Then, who was it I saw at the rockery that night? And the money concubine Yen and the steward prepared for their elopement. Who has it now?" My face froze. I had intended to keep deflecting, but looking into his eyes, I knew there was no point in denying it further. He had probably noticed me on the very day the steward was beaten to death. I let out a long sigh and regained my composure. "Yes, the money is with this servant. Does the second young master bring this up because you want me to hand it all over? The capture of the steward and concubine Yen, the second young master must have played a significant part in that, did you not?" I looked straight at him, a slight smile on my lips. "Yes, I did. I was only probing." I did not expect him to admit it so readily. It startled me. It seemed his gentle exterior was just a facade. "Are you not afraid this servant will speak of this outside?" Afraid of what? They were the ones who committed the act. I did not fabricate it. At most, I just brought the matter to light a little sooner. He narrowed his eyes, his fingers tapping rhythmically on the table, a mirthless smile on his face. My heart pounded. I tried probing again. "Did the second young master have a grudge against the steward?" "That is not something you should ask." His single sentence shut me down. I did not know what to say next and lowered my head in silence. For a moment, I was at a loss. Finally, I just gave up and looked directly at him. "Second young master, what do you really want? You did not bring this up just for the money, did you?" "Of course I did. You saw it, so you get a share. Do you not think you should give half to me? You know, I am very poor." I stared wide-eyed. Having been in his courtyard for so long, this was the first time I had seen such a roguish expression behind his transcendent, scholarly demeanor. My mouth twitched. Then half it is. The remaining amount is still enough for me to leave the estate and live well. Second young master. This servant will go get it for you right now. As I finished speaking, he asked, "Where did you hide the banknotes?" There was no point in hiding it anymore. I sighed. This servant sewed them into my winter padded jacket. You hid it well.
Yes.
My expression did not change. Then, second young master, please wait a moment. This servant will bring it right away. I turned to leave, but he called me back.
Wait.
Does the second young master have other instructions? I pressed my lips together, trying to keep my expression from twisting into a grimace. Forget it. I was just teasing you. He laughed. Keep the money for yourself. Are you serious, second young master? My eyes lit up, but my joy was quickly extinguished by his next words. You can keep the money, but now that you are with me, we are in the same boat. You will cooperate with me and help me do a few things. He smiled slightly. What things? Help me bring down Madame Zhao. If she makes any moves, whatever she tells you to do, you must report it to me. I paused, took a deep breath, and asked seriously, Then what will the second young master give me? Your freedom. His voice was not loud, but it struck my heart like a heavy drum. Freedom. That was a truly tempting offer. That night, the second young master Han Zhao favored me, and thus I successfully completed my mission for Madame Zhao. Lotus gave me a jade bangle, encouraging me to continue my efforts. At the same time, after Madame Zhao's birthday celebration, the Zhao estate underwent a major change. It suddenly became wealthy. Merchants continuously arrived seeking to partner with the Zhao estate. The depleted number of maids was replenished, all of them notably beautiful. Lord Zhao's rear courtyard also gained a new young concubine from Yangzhou, a gift from a merchant whom he doted on. The maid Fong, whom Madame Zhao had gifted to the eldest young master Wei, became pregnant and was elevated to the status of concubine. The eldest young madam, though resentful, tacitly accepted it.
Peony and
Zhao, however, remained mere maids, and under the oppressive presence of Fong, their lives became very difficult. The day Fong was promoted, she hosted a small banquet in her courtyard, inviting her old friends from the embroidery hall. She and I had a decent relationship. We would chat occasionally. Seeing Fong now, carefully cradling her belly, draped in silk and brocade with two maids attending her, I felt a wave of emotion. Her face was full of happiness. Her life seemed very good now. But could such happiness last? I picked up my food, my gaze drifting to Jade, the eldest young madam's personal maid. She was currently laughing and joking with the others, seemingly without a care in the world. Keep the child, discard the mother.
it was not a new concept.
The cause of Han Zhao's mother's death had long been the subject of gossip in the estate. As I was lost in thought, Fong suddenly approached me holding a cup of plain water. She smiled. May, it has been a long time. Today, you must do me this honor. I will use water in place of wine to toast you. I was startled and quickly stood up, grabbing my own wine cup. Sister Fong, what are you saying? You took care of me so much back in the embroidery hall. It should be me toasting you. I will drink first. I quickly clinked my cup with hers and drained it in one go. My forthrightness seemed to stun Fong for a moment, the words she had prepared catching in her throat. She gave an awkward laugh and continued. When you entered the embroidery hall, you were still so young. It was nothing to help each other out. Even though we are in different courtiers now, I hope our sisterly bond will not fade. She pointedly emphasized the word sisterly. I immediately understood her hidden meaning. I glanced around. Everyone present understood the subtext. There were few secrets in the Zhao estate, especially since Han Zhao had never tried to hide his different treatment of me. Rumors had been swirling for ages. Now that I had been favored by the second young master Han Zhao, it had become an accepted fact. Fong's words today implied she saw me as a fellow traveler on the same path. I understood. Fong was also a maid bought on a deed of sale during that great flood. People in our situation had few choices. Most were either married off to another servant or were cast out for various reasons before they even grew old. The luckiest ones got to stay by their master's side, living out their days in peace. But no matter what, they never had freedom. Their lives were still in someone else's hands. Someone like me who only wanted to escape the estate was a rarity, because life outside was not necessarily any better than life inside. Everyone has their own goals. Mine was freedom. Sister, you say we should not be strangers, but those words make us feel distant. Even if we are in different courtiers, are we not still in the same estate? It seems you are the one being silly. When I have time in the future, I will definitely come and visit you more. She chuckled lightly. Yes, I replied with a smile. After a few more pleasantries, the conversation ended. Fong was pregnant, so she only stayed a short while longer before being helped back to her room by her maids. I drank a few more cups, fending off those who tried to chat and probe for information. Finally, when the sky was dark, I left the courtyard. I had just reached a secluded corner when someone grabbed me. Before I could react, I heard a familiar voice. May, it is me, Peony. Fong has sided with the eldest young madam now. Her seeking you out is definitely not for anything good. You should be careful. The eldest young madam. I thought for a moment, and understood. A distant patron is less useful than a direct superior. Ultimately, Fong would have to live under the eldest young madam's authority. Before I could ask more, Peony hurried away. A few days later, Fong's maid came to find me, inviting me to her courtyard. When I returned, I was wearing a heavy two-tail gold bracelet that I struggled to take off. You are back.
Yes.
I took the gold bracelet from my sleeve and placed it on the table. This is a gift from the eldest young madam. Han Zhao, who had been writing, looked up and glanced at it. It is nice. Since she gave it to you, just keep it. Yes, I replied, stuffing the bracelet back into my sleeve. What is wrong? You received gold. Why are you not happy? I sighed and slowly recounted the day's events. The conflict between the eldest young madam and Madame Zhao was intensifying. To deal with Madame Zhao, the eldest young madam was now even targeting Han. During our meeting today, her maid Jade had deliberately hinted at old matters within the Zhao estate. Han's mother had not died of a simple illness. The great monk from the Lingyin temple all those years ago had also been invited by Madame Zhao. Originally, Madame Zhao intended to send Han away from the estate, but old Madame Zhao spoke up and the matter was dropped. Now seeing Han grown into a potential top scholar, how could Madame Zhao not be on guard? Thus this whole affair. Oh, so what does she want? Han asked, his hand never ceasing its writing. She was not direct. Perhaps she wants to cooperate, I thought carefully. She probably has that intention. The eldest young madam even promised to help me secure an official status to serve you properly. But that was not important, so I did not bother mentioning it. Then just agree to it, but do not agree too firmly. As for Madame Zhao, you know what to do. Yes, this servant understands. I nodded, but I could not stop sighing internally. When did I, a simple maid, become a triple agent? It was exhausting just thinking about it. Even though I was receiving many valuable things, if I could not use them, they were meaningless. Second young master, you will not forget your promise to this servant, will you? Rest assured. It is almost time. I had only meant to remind him, but I had not expected such a firm reply. My heart settled. Time passed. With Han's cooperation, my achievements became more and more apparent. The man once praised as a top scholar candidate was now declining day by day, causing many to sigh in regret. Lord Zhao summoned me several times, issuing warnings and punishments, but each time Han managed to protect me just in time. Thanks to his quick arrivals, I was spared any severe penalties. After one such incident, to demonstrate his favor, Han personally applied medicine to my wounds. Madame Zhao was very pleased and rewarded me handsomely. Meanwhile, the Zhao estate grew more and more prosperous. Lord Zhao's reinstatement to his post seemed a certainty. Looking at Han and then thinking of Lord Zhao, his body drained by wine and women, his face a waxy, sallow color, I truly doubted if he would even live to see the day of his reinstatement. Peony came to find me many more times after that day, mostly to complain and to probe for information. Clearly, Fong was not easy to deal with. Now, I had to be on guard every time I spoke to anyone.
It was truly exhausting.
I do not know what tricks Peony used, but Madame Zhao eventually elevated her to concubine status as well. Zhao, who had sided with the eldest young madam, was also given her formal ceremony and became a concubine. In one courtyard, the eldest young madam now had 3 concubines, each with her own schemes and allegiances. Every time I passed by, I tried to avoid it, not wanting to invite trouble. All I knew was that the second young master had said it is almost time. How much longer would that be? Half a year had passed. In that half year, it became clear the eldest young madam was no match for Madame Zhao. Her own son naturally sided with his biological mother, Madame Zhao, while the eldest young master Wei was lost in a sea of women and paid his wife no mind. If not for Han's help, she would have been completely crushed. One day, Fong, her belly now massive, sent someone to fetch me. She could barely walk. After greeting her, I skillfully made my way to the eldest young madam's room. Peony stood outside, watching me with a meaningful look. I gave her a neutral nod and lifted the curtain to enter. The eldest young madam was reclining on a soft chair while Jade stood beside her, feeding her pear slices. When she saw me, she gave a look and the other maids in the room immediately filed out. I curtsied. Eldest young madam, we have been cooperating quite well for the past 6 months. May, by my count, you have been in this estate for nearly 10 years, have you not? Yes, almost 10 years. I was not sure what she was getting at, so I answered honestly. Have you thought about your future? This servant belongs to the Zhao estate. I hear the second young master Han dotes on you. You were sick recently, and he even missed the Academy's annual poetry gathering to stay by your side all night. It earned him a scolding from his teacher. I lowered my head, frowning slightly, and answered cautiously. It is only because the second young master pities the servant.
Ha!
The eldest young madam suddenly laughed, her sharp, overpowering gaze fixed on me. May, are you truly this naive? Or are you pretending? My brother-in-law has genuinely fallen for you. You really have some skill. Madam carefully selected so many women to send to his courtyard, yet none of them accomplished anything. Skill? This servant does not understand, nor is it something this servant should understand. I pressed my lips together, my gaze growing cold. Eldest young madam, is there something else you summoned the servant for today? Something else? The eldest young madam's lips curled. Indeed there is. Consider this my way of repaying the second young master for his help. When a tree grows too large, its branches must be divided. Madame Zhao is preparing to persuade Lord Zhao to separate the assets and send the concubine-born sons out on their own. Separate the assets. I could not help but look up, my eyes wide. Old Madame Zhao and Lord Zhao are still here. How can they separate the assets? His reinstatement is imminent. The estate still has many unmarried concubine-born sons and daughters. That will cost a great deal of money. Is not separating them off a good solution? The eldest young madam casually tossed a silver hairpin onto the tray Jade was holding. I do not know what methods Madame Zhao used, but Lord Zhao seems to have been persuaded. It is only because of propriety and etiquette that he has not agreed yet, and he still has to get past old Madame Zhao. But I do not think she will stop so easily. To separate the assets at this time, I am afraid they will not get to take much with them. She sneered, glancing at me meaningfully. I immediately lowered my head. This servant will report this to the second young master. You may leave.
Yes.
I never expected to gain such information from this visit. My feelings were complicated, but I had a vague thought. If they separated the assets, perhaps it would be a good thing for Han Zhao. He had a bright future. He did not need to be tied to the Zhao estate. As I left the courtyard, I was pulled aside by Peony. Ever since she became a concubine, our relationship had grown stranger. Different statuses, different allegiances. it was hard to return to how we were. May, what did the eldest young madam say to you? I curved my lips in a faint, cold smile and shook my head. Do you even need to ask me? Is there anything in that courtyard you do not know? I gently pulled her hand off my sleeve and walked past her. May, I really did not mean to. I just wanted to help you. Peony's choked voice came from behind me. I did not turn back. That day, when the mating died suddenly, it was Peony who had recommended me to Lord Zhao. I had truly never expected that. It was Jade who had hinted at it for me. All those years of sisterly affection, it felt like it had been fed to the dogs. The eldest young madam asked this servant to tell the second young master that Madame Zhao wants to separate the assets. I reported calmly to Han Zhao. I know. He nodded, saying nothing more. Is there anything the second young master needs this servant to do? I frowned, surprised. He turned his head and smiled at me.
No, May.
For the next few days, just stay quietly in the courtyard. If you have time, practice your writing and wait. I was a bit confused, but I did as he said. More than half a month later, a rumor spread from somewhere that Lord Zhao was preparing to separate the assets for the concubine-born sons. Right at the moment of his potential reinstatement, it was truly suspicious. But before Lord Zhao could even clarify the matter, he suffered a stroke and collapsed from his horse. After so many years indulging in wine and women, on top of the maids and personal maids in the estate, Lord Zhao also had countless mistresses outside. Now it seemed his chickens had come home to roost. The physician arrived in time to save his life, but from now on he would be bedridden, needing someone to care for his every need. The matter of his reinstatement was, of course, hopeless. The sons took turns attending to his sickbed to fulfill their filial duties.
I accompanied Hanxie.
Looking at the middle-aged man on the bed, his mouth twisted, drool streaming down, he looked utterly pathetic. I could not muster a shred of pity. If I were to pity him, I would rather pity the young girls he had ruined. If Ying had not encountered him, perhaps she would not have died so tragically. Second brother, I will leave this to you. I have been watching for 3 days. I am going back to rest. Elder brother, you have worked hard. You can rest assured with me here with father. Han Zhao smiled, glancing at the man on the bed. For father to end up like this. The eldest young master Wei sighed. He seemed to want to say something but stopped. In the end, he just clapped Han hard on the shoulder, shook his head, and left. On the bed, drool once again trickled from the corner of Lord Zhao's mouth. Han dismissed all the maids and walked to the bedside. He took an old, worn silk handkerchief from his robes and carefully wiped the man's mouth. Father.
Lord Zhao could not speak.
He could only stare at Han with wide, cloudy eyes. It looked like a scene of filial piety. But when Han spoke his next words, the atmosphere shattered. Father, do you recognize this handkerchief? Years ago, my mother used this to wipe your sweat countless times. He unfolded the handkerchief, waving it back and forth in front of Lord Zhao's face. Seeing the man's eyes widen, Han gave a cold laugh. But I suppose you would not remember. You have always been surrounded by beautiful women. A withered flower like my mother. Why would you remember? Father, you have been good at everything in your life, except for your weakness for one thing. Women. How did you enjoy those delicate beauties? Han smiled faintly, but his eyes held no trace of warmth, only naked, chilling cold. My heart trembled. Watching this scene, I felt an indescribable sorrow. During my time as Han's accomplice, I had learned many of the estate's secrets, even if I had not wanted to. Han's mother had not died of illness. But the perpetrator was not just Madame Zhao. It was also Lord Zhao. Years ago, Lord Zhao faced difficulties in his career. It just so happened that his superior at the time took an interest in Han's mother, concubine Lian. To curry favor, Lord Zhao gifted her to that official. 3 days later, concubine Lian returned, her body battered and bruised. After losing her beauty, Lord Zhao immediately cast her aside. Madame Zhao, who already despised her, deliberately delayed calling a physician, allowing her to die a miserable death.
Han was young then.
They thought he would not remember. But how could he forget? He had hidden this hatred for so many years, and finally the day for vengeance had come. I did not know how much effort and calculation he had poured into reaching this day. Lord Zhao, hearing his words, stared with wide eyes, his throat emitting hoarse, gurgling sounds as if trying to curse him. But Han acted as if he did not hear, continuing to smile as he recounted every one of Lord Zhao's past crimes. His words were like a hammer striking stone, each blow landing deep. Han's final words caused Lord Zhao to break down completely. How does it feel to be betrayed? From concubine Yan to Madame Zhao, not a single one of them did not hate you. You think lying here paralyzed, Madame Zhao will treat you well? For how long? Lord Zhao trembled, like a suffocating fish flopping on a cutting board. His mouth gaped, managing only that one sound. Drool flowed incessantly, quickly soaking the brocade quilt. Father, rest assured. I will take good care of you. Han smiled, gently wiping his mouth again. Rest assured, I will not spare a single one of them. From you to Madame Zhao, to concubine Yan, to that official who caused my mother's death. Han stayed and cared for Lord Zhao for 3 days, fulfilling his duty as a filial son. Lord Zhao was so enraged he was on the verge of death, but his body was already weak and his condition severe, so no one noticed. After Lord Zhao's collapse, Madame Zhao and the eldest young Master Wei naturally became the most powerful people in the estate. Although Lord Zhao's hopes of reinstatement were dashed, the money the Zhao estate had earned was very real. Madame Zhao, who had already intended to separate the concubine-born sons from the family, now dared to openly consult the clan elders. Spring arrived with light rains. The child in Fang's belly was born. At the same time, Peony and Zhao also became pregnant. Madame Zhao now had her first main wife's grandson of the 3rd generation. The Zhao estate was thriving, and it was at this time that Lord Zhao passed away. He died suddenly and quietly. The entire estate was in mourning. Han Zhao, who was supposed to take the imperial examination this year, was now forced to observe a 3-year mourning period. The funeral was held with great ceremony. Many officials and nobles who had ties with Lord Zhao came to pay their respects. Everyone praised Madame Zhao for handling the affairs so thoroughly. Han, along with his brothers, kept watch over the coffin in the morning hall. I secretly prepared some pastries he liked and brought them to him. When I arrived, I overheard several servants whispering. I heard that after the funeral, Madame Zhao is going to divide the assets and separate the concubine-born sons. Really? Of course. My daughter works by Madame Zhao's side. She heard it with her own ears. Oh, then the vast majority of the assets will definitely go to the eldest young master and the other mainline children. The concubine-born sons will get second young master. I squatted down carefully, pressing the oil paper packet of pastries into Han Zhao's hand and whispered what I had just heard. It is almost time. Han carefully tucked the packet into his sleeve and said in a low voice, You should go back and rest. Kai is here to keep watch. Yes. Seeing he already knew, I said no more. I handed him the things and left. Outside, Kai was leaning against a pillar, stifling yawn. I walked over and pressed another packet of pastries into his hand. Thank you, Sister May. Kai licked his lips, thanking me quietly. 3 months after the funeral, Madame Zhao formally approached the clan elders with the request to separate the concubine-born sons from the main line. She had already reached an agreement with the clan leader beforehand, so despite the concubine-born sons' complaints and protests, everything proceeded according to her plan. Han Zhao was on the list to be separated. I was not qualified to enter the ancestral hall to listen to the proceedings. I only saw that when the concubine-born young masters came out, their faces were ashen. It seemed none of them had received anything good. Han was the last to emerge. His expression was unreadable. That night, I made some late-night snacks and brought them to him. Second young master. He replied softly, turning his head. He was holding an old piece of paper. As I set the tray down and was about to speak, he looked directly into my eyes, a gentle smile appearing.
May, congratulations.
You are free. He handed me my deed of sale. Looking at the thin paper with its red seal, I did not know what to feel in that moment. 1,000 emotions churned in my heart, and tears welled up uncontrollably. I was trembling as I took the deed from his hand. He was very considerate. He quietly left the study, closing the door behind him. In the silent room, I clutched the deed and wept silently. I only learned later that Zhao had traded his entire share of the inheritance to get my freedom from Madame Zhao. After canceling my servant status at the government office and burning the deed, he even used his own money to have someone create a new household registration for me. I had gone from a slave to a commoner. After leaving the Zhao estate, I rented a small house. I made a living doing embroidery. The days passed peacefully and comfortably. The money I had gotten from concubine yen was not a small sum, but I could not find a reasonable excuse to take it all out at once. Living too lavishly would attract suspicion. Before leaving the estate, I had offered the bulk of it to Han, but he just smiled and refused, saying I should keep that small amount for myself. I knew he was no ordinary man, but I never expected him to be this extraordinary. After leaving the Zhao estate, Han Zhao seemed to unleash his full capabilities. The Zhao estate's businesses, which had been booming, were suddenly hit hard. Although no single event could be clearly traced back to him, I had a vague feeling it was his doing. In less than 3 years, the Zhao estate had declined. A large number of servants were dismissed. I sometimes heard from old friends from the estate that the Zhao family was now a complete mess. Madame Zhao and the eldest young madam had never liked each other. When the estate was prosperous, it was manageable. Now the mother-in-law and daughter-in-law fought every time they met. The eldest young Master Wei was not cut out to manage the family and spent his days in a drunken stupor. The various concubines were all busy scraping together their own private funds. The next time I saw Peony, I almost did not recognize her. Her face was etched with sorrow, her cheeks sunken. I had not wanted to see her, but she recognized me.
May.
I had already changed my name back to my real one, Qing. But hearing that old name still stirred my emotions. Peony. I turned back, giving her a faint smile. I hesitated, then asked, "How did you get out? You were elevated to a concubine. It should not be easy for you to leave, especially to a pawn shop." I glanced at the sign. It was a simple question, but it made Peony burst into tears and grab onto me. I saw people on the street turning to look, but she would not let go. I sighed, pulled her into a nearby noodle shop, and ordered a bowl of wonton noodles for her. It took a long time to calm her down. "How did you get out?" asked again. Peony wiped her tears, a wan smile on her face. The Zhao estate is a mess, like a pot of spoiled porridge. The eldest young madam demands a divorce from the eldest young master every day, wanting to return to her maiden home. Madame Zhao is so busy with outside affairs she is going mad. No one is paying any attention to us. That sounded so cold and cruel. "Oh," I replied softly. The wonton noodles arrived quickly. As soon as they were on the table, I urged her to eat. She clearly had a lot to say, but I did not want to know. After a moment, she could not hold back any longer and looked up. "May, how have you been?" "I do embroidery to earn money. Life is not rich, but it is stable enough," I replied vaguely. "I am so envious of you. You left that place so early." I did not know what to say, so I just smiled and did not speak, lowering my head to eat. After a while, as if she could not accept it, she suddenly spoke up. "May, do you still hate me? It is all in the past. Let us not bring it up." I pressed my lips together. "Back then, when Manager Chen was bullying you in the embroidery hall, I really did want to help you. I never intended to push you into Lord Zhao's courtyard." When she saw I was not responding, she quickly grabbed my hand.
I know, Peony. You are just placating me."
"No, I am not." "Yes, you are. Do you still look down on me for climbing into the young master's bed?" Her insistence started to annoy me. I put out my chopsticks and took a deep breath. "Peony, there are some things I did not want to say, but since you have pressed the issue, I will be direct. Your relationship with the eldest young master. I do not judge you, and I do not look down on you. That was your choice, and you have to accept the consequences, whatever they are. As for the matter with Lord Zhao, whether your intentions were good or bad, the fact is you almost pushed me into a fiery pit. I was lucky to escape. It has been a long time. I do not want to talk about it anymore. Then why are you still so cold to me? Have you forgotten? When we were in the embroidery hall, Manager Chen punished you by making you kneel and refused you food. I was the one who skipped my own meal to bring you a steamed bun. Yes, I remember. I nodded, my gaze on Peony complicated. It is precisely because I remember that I can sit here calmly and eat with you. We entered the embroidery hall together. We were together. We survived all those years. But why did you drug me? Just to get into the eldest young master's courtyard. I never thought you would do that to me. You knew I had just recovered from a serious illness.
My health was still weak.
Peony stammered, her eyes darting around. I did not intend to kill you. The person who sold me the drug said it would at most just make you sick in bed for a few days. Regardless, the fact that you even had that thought was wrong. Let us leave it at that. From now on, we will go our separate ways. After saying this, I had no appetite left. I took 10 copper coins from my pouch, paid for the meal, and stood up to leave, but my sleeve was pulled back. May, I was wrong.
Help me.
Just as she finished speaking, a group of familiar figures appeared in the distance. They were men from the Zhao estate. Peony's eyes went wide. She trembled in fear, trying to hide, but it was not long before she was caught and dragged away. A concubine of the Zhao estate sneaking out to a pawn shop. I feared her return would not be pleasant. I looked down at the 2 butterflies embroidered on my shoes, and an image from many years ago flashed in my mind. A little girl with 2 hair buns, smiling brightly, was the first to extend her hand to me. Hello. I am Peony. What is your name? 3 years of mourning passed. Another spring arrived. Under Han Zhao's subtle machinations, the Zhao estate was now just an empty shell. The eldest young Master Wei was devastated by the blow and spent his days in a drunken stupor. Madame Zhao, exhausted from worrying about her children and grandchildren, aged visibly in just a few short years. She finally became bedridden with an incurable illness. Her days were now harder than those of the concubine-born children she had cast out, who would often return just to mock her. The rise and fall of the Zhao estate was truly lamentable. As for Han Zhao, he passed the palace examination, becoming an imperial scholar. He ranked 3rd, earning the title of Tanhua, 3rd laureate. When the news arrived, I was sitting in my courtyard embroidering a handkerchief. With money in hand, my heart was at ease, and everything in my life had slowed down. But when I heard the news, I was still a little surprised. In the imperial examinations of this era, Tanhua was an extremely high honor reserved for the most outstanding talents. Apart from being happy for him, I did not think much else of it. But then one day, as I was returning home, I saw his figure at my gate. I froze, then, collecting myself, I curtsied lightly. This commoner greets Lord Zhao. He looked surprised for a moment, then chuckled. Lord Zhao. Qing, have we become so distant? Hearing his familiar tone, I felt bolder. I am joking. If I do not call you Lord Zhao, what should I call you? Surely not second young master still. You could call me by my name. My footsteps faltered. I avoided his gaze and did not answer, saying only, Would you like to come in for a cup of tea? I would, he replied softly, stepping inside naturally, his eyes scanning the courtyard. I invited him to sit on a chair in the yard and pour him some hot tea. I do not drink tea very often. This is just ordinary tea, not as good as what you are used to. You will have to make do. I am not a picky person. He took the cup and sipped. How have you been these past 2 years? Very well. The fruit trees, the flowers by the wall, the grape trellis. I had spent my time arranging every little detail. My life had never been so peaceful and serene. Even though I was a transmigrator, I had no grand ambitions. I only wished to live quietly day by day and finally rest beneath the yellow earth.
I can see that. Han Xiao smiled.
Why have you come here today? I asked, smiling. I have passed the examination. He suddenly looked at me, his gaze serious. His eyes held an indescribable emotion that made me unconsciously look away. So, are you willing to marry me? I had not even had a chance to congratulate him. His question made me freeze. I pressed my lips together, the smile fading from my face. I said nothing. He did not rush me, just sat quietly drinking his tea, waiting for my answer. After a long time, I finally looked up and met his gaze.
Why?
Why me? I am not beautiful, nor do I have any special qualities. Why would you notice me? I hate to say it, but ever since I entered your courtyard, I always felt you were different. I do not believe in love at first sight, and before that, I was always in the embroidery hall. I hardly ever interacted with you. It seems you truly do not remember.
Zhao shook his head.
Do not remember what? Have I forgotten something? I frowned, trying hard to think, but confirmed I had not missed anything. Seeing my confused expression, Han gave a resigned smile and began to tell the story himself. When I was 6 years old, my mother passed away. The monk from Lingyin Temple said my destiny was flawed. After we returned to our ancestral home, Madame Zhao had me sent to the remote tranquil garden, leaving only 2 or 3 marginalized servants to care for me. They already resented the Zhao estate, and they had even less respect for an abandoned concubine-born son like me. They only grudgingly kept me from starving. They thought I did not understand anything, so they spoke freely. I already suspected my mother's death. She had been perfectly healthy. How could she suddenly die of illness? They would not let me see her. They just quietly took her body away one night. I was small then. No matter how much I asked, I was dismissed as a child. Father lost his temper with me more than once. My life in the estate became increasingly difficult. Sometimes I would eat one meal and not know if there would be a next. It was then that I met you. You had just entered the estate, a tiny little thing, just a lowly kitchen maid, ordered around by everyone. The servants in charge of me paid me no mind. I was so hungry my vision blurred. I managed to run to the main kitchen, intending to steal some food. He paused and gave a self-deprecating laugh. It is ridiculous, is it not? I was also father's son, but compared to my elder brother, I had to steal scraps to eat. I pursed my lips. Hearing this, I finally remembered. It was hard to believe that the little boy hiding by the window, looking just like a beggar, was actually the second young master of the estate. I had thought he was in the same predicament as me. He had worked up the courage to act, but he was not fast enough. He was spotted by the kitchen manager. Luckily, he ran fast and was not caught. Afterwards, I was the one punished by Manager Chen. She made me kneel on the blue stone floor for an hour, claiming I had not guarded the kitchen properly. In truth, I had been sitting by the stove, and I was not the only one in the kitchen. But for a maid on a deed of sale with no one to rely on, all excuses were meaningless. In the estate, Manager Chen was the law. Before I transmigrated, I had never even kneeled before my own parents, but in this estate, kneeling had become a habit because I wanted to live. After I finished my punishment and got up, I secretly saw him again. I should have been angry, but looking at his pathetic state, I could not muster any anger. The fault was not his. It was this era.
You walked over?
He shyly apologized to me.
I
took out a steamed bun I had hidden in my sleeve and gave it to him. I smiled wryly. Could it be just because of that? That seems too absurd. Just as I was thinking, Han's voice pulled me back to the present. At that time, you gave me a steamed bun, and you told me that without strength, resistance only brings more suffering. If you want to resist, you have to be like bamboo shoots hidden under the earth, enduring silently, secretly gathering strength. Wait until the spring thunder cracks, then you can burst forth. Your words were so interesting. They did not sound like something a child would say, but they filled me with admiration. So, I buried the grief for my mother deep in my heart and threw all my energy into studying. I was respectful to father, to Madame Zhao, and to my elder brother. I waited until I was grown, and then I found the truth. father, Madame Zhao, concubine Yen, and that official, I would not let any of them go. I blinked, looking at him tenderly. Those bitter years were over. He had truly succeeded. Concubine Yen had been Madame Zhao's pawn, the one who had pushed Han's mother into that official's hands. Now concubine Yen and Lord Zhao were dead. Madame Zhao was suffering what his mother had suffered, debt-ridden and incurable. As for that official, with Han's current position in the imperial court, I feared his end would not be good either. When I said those words back then, I was not thinking deeply. I was just encouraging myself to get through those difficult days. Later, I also succeeded. I not only took down the kitchen manager, but also got transferred to the embroidery hall. The only thing I never expected was that he would remember it all these years. If it was just that small childhood kindness, then you already repaid it when you gave me my deed. For such a trivial thing, surely you do not need to repay me with your hand in marriage. I lowered my head, unable to look at him. Qing, in your eyes, am I that shallow? I truly want to marry you. In the estate. Even though you did not know, I was always watching you. You like osmanthus cakes. You hate cilantro. You wanted to learn to read, but always hid it. He chuckled softly, listing every detail. My identity was special. Madame Zhao was always watching me. To avoid implicating you, I could only watch from afar. Later, when things happened and I saw you were about to be sent to father's courtyard, I had no choice but to bring you to my side. But only then did I discover you were even better than I imagined. What I am saying to you now, I mean it. Lord Zhao. I could not help but raise my voice. His deep affection was a heavy burden to bear. I was just a maid. Now I am just a commoner. I do not mind, but I mind. I pressed my lips together, took a deep breath, and continued. Do you understand? You and I are not of the same class. I may not fear the world's gossip, but I fear the future. Right now, you may like me, but feelings fade over time. When you meet someone better, I will have no way to change or resist. I am afraid I will just become a resentful woman. And what about my status? Will I just be a concubine? You will be my main wife, my official wife. He looked deep into my eyes, his every word clear. Qing, I swear to the heavens, I will never take a concubine in this life. My mother suffered enough because of that status. How could I let you endure the same? As for our children, they will all be main wife's children. There will be no concubine-born children. My heart trembled. I could not help but avoid his gaze. I could feel his sincerity, his earnestness, his affection, his kindness toward me. I understood it all, and it was not as if I had no feelings for him. It is just I admit I am a coward. I have seen too many betrayals between men and women. How can I so easily give my heart away? After all, in this era, there is no divorce, only setting aside a wife or mutual separation, and even with mutual separation, the power to initiate it rests with the man. Love is precious, but freedom is worth more. I thought perhaps there was nothing left to say. I was preparing to see him out, but he took a thin piece of paper from his robes and handed it to me. Qing, I know you are afraid, but I hope you will not give up on me just because you fear the unknown. Life is a long river. No one can know if what is ahead is good or bad. Can you trust me just this once? I will treat you well. I know this era is not fair to women. He looked into my eyes, his gaze warm, his words clear. I am giving you your freedom and the right to leave me at any time. It was a document of mutual divorce, already signed by him. He understood everything. He had prepared for it all. My heart stirred. For a moment, I was speechless. I am in no hurry. I will wait for your answer. He stood up, leaving me in the quiet courtyard to think. The next day, he sent someone to deliver all the assets he had accumulated over the years for my inspection, holding nothing back, giving me the power to see everything. Marriage is a gamble. I admitted I was still worried, but perhaps I should be a little braver. On a bright, sunny morning, I wrote him my reply. The proposal, the asking of names, the betrothal gifts, the setting of the date. Every step of the formal betrothal process, he gave me the utmost respect and honor. My parents, hearing the news, wanted to come and profit, but he handled them quietly, sending them far away. Everyone in the city could not understand why a man with such a bright future would be so determined to marry a common girl like me, and as his official primary wife. He simply said, because I like her. Many years later, our hair was white. We were lying on rattan chairs, basking in the sun. Our 7-year-old granddaughter, having found it somewhere, pulled out the document of mutual divorce I had long forgotten. She asked with wide, curious eyes, "Grandmother, what is this?" I squinted to look at it, then smiled and handed it to Han, who was sitting beside me. "We are this old, and you still kept this?" He shook his head, feigning confusion, but his eyes were full of laughter. "Of course. This is the proof of your love for me. In the future, it must be buried with me." "Oh, all right. As you wish. I have never been able to win against you in this lifetime." "Only this lifetime? What about the next?" "The next lifetime, that will also be as you wish." Years had passed since that sunny morning when I wrote my acceptance to Han Zhao's proposal. Our life together unfolded like the pages of a well-loved book, each chapter revealing new depths I had never imagined possible. The official who had defiled Han's mother met his end within 2 years of our marriage. Han never spoke of it directly, but I saw the way his shoulders relaxed when the news arrived, the way he visited his mother's grave that spring with fresh flowers, and finally, after all those years, a peaceful expression on his face. Madame Zhao lived 5 more years after the estate's collapse, long enough to see her beloved eldest son lose everything she had schemed so hard to secure for him. The eldest young Master Wei drank himself to death before his 40th year. The eldest young madam returned to her family, taking her dowry and whatever dignity she had left. Of the 3 concubines, only Fong survived, released with her son to live a modest life in the countryside. I never saw Peony again after that day, in the noodle shop. I heard rumors, whispers in the market. Some said she had been sold to a merchant's household as a servant. Others claimed she had managed to escape the estate and disappeared into the anonymity of a distant city. I chose to believe the latter. Despite everything, despite the poison and the betrayal, I hoped she had found some measure of peace. The memory of that little girl with 2 hair buns, extending her hand in friendship, never quite left me. The money from concubine Yen and the steward, that fortune I had hidden for so long, I finally revealed to Han on our first anniversary. I had expected surprise, perhaps even anger that I had kept it secret. Instead, he laughed, that warm, genuine laugh I had come to cherish. We used it to establish a small charity, providing dowries for girls from poor families and helping maids buy their freedom from difficult situations. It seemed fitting that money born from a tragic love affair should help others find their own paths to freedom. Han's career flourished. He rose through the ranks with a combination of brilliance and integrity that earned him both respect and influence. He kept his promise. There were no concubines, no secondary wives. When other officials mocked him for having only one wife, he would smile and say, "Why would I want a garden of weeds when I have a single perfect flower?" It always made me blush, no matter how many times I heard it. We had 4 children, 3 daughters and a son. Han insisted all of them learn to read and write, the girls as well as the boy. This raised eyebrows in our social circle, but Han never wavered. Our eldest daughter grew up to marry a scholar and became a poet of some renown. Our second daughter chose to remain unmarried, running the charity we had established and expanding it to 3 more cities. Our youngest daughter married a merchant and scandalized society by helping her husband manage his business accounts. Our son followed his father's footsteps into government service, though he never quite matched Han's achievements. He did not need to. He was happy, and that was enough. The document of mutual divorce remained in a carved wooden box in Han's study, untouched and unnecessary. Sometimes I would catch him looking at it, a soft smile on his face. Once, I asked him why he kept it when I clearly had no intention of ever using it. He took my hand and said, "Because it reminds me that you chose to stay not because you had to, but because you wanted to. That makes every day a gift." Old Madame Zhao, who had been the only kind soul among the masters of that estate, lived to see our first grandchild. She held the baby girl in her arms and whispered to me, "I always knew Han would break the cycle. I am glad he found someone worthy of that courage." She passed peacefully in her sleep a month later. Kai, Han's loyal attendant, remained with us until his own marriage. We helped him establish a small tea shop, which prospered. He named his firstborn son after Han, a gesture that moved my husband to tears. The Zhao estate itself was eventually sold to pay off debts. The grand buildings that had housed so much suffering and scheming were torn down and rebuilt as a school. Han arranged it quietly, ensuring that children from all backgrounds could attend. The old tranquil garden, where I had learned to read and write, where I had first felt the stirrings of something more than survival, was preserved as a library. Sometimes, when we visited the city, Han and I would walk through it, remembering. I never forgot what it meant to be powerless, to have your fate in someone else's hands. The memory kept me humble and grateful. Every morning, when I woke in my own home, making my own choices, living my own life, I felt the weight of that freedom. It was a gift I had fought for, that Han had given me, that we had built together. Thank you for listening to this story on Lotus Tale Studios. If you enjoyed it, please support us with a like, comment, and subscribe to our channel.